Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, EdTech, for this opportunity. I think there was a little bit of miscommunication. I thought I had a lot more time, but I won't be able to go through the whole presentation, but let's see how much I can cover. So my topic was learning reimagined and how we can use AI as a catalyst. This is a topic that you all have been speaking about and hearing. I have a little bit of a different perspective, and I'd like to kind of share that with you from my human development background. And there's a lot of debate. People talk about whether it's a turning point, whether we need to fear AI, embrace it, selectively use it. So we'll get a little bit into that. But I'd like to kind of think about reimagining intelligence, human intelligence, in the age of artificial intelligence. Because we have exponential changes that are happening constantly. But while there has been a lot of progress, there's also a lot of things that we need to be aware of as educators. And this is happening with adults. So I can't imagine how much this is going to be happening with the younger generation. So already what's happening is there's a lot of a term called cognitive offloading that is happening. So we're relying too much on AI to give us the answers, and we're not using our own intelligence. And we grew up in a generation where we learned the hard way, right? And that is how we gained our competence. That is how we gained our intelligence. But right now what's happening is we're seeing a decline in creativity, we're seeing a decline in critical thinking skills, different cognitive abilities because of the over-reliance on AI. I'm not against AI. I definitely use AI, and I think that there's great value for it. We can use it as a tool for research and systematic, organization and all those things. But we also have to not stop using our human intelligence is what I'd like to kind of make the case for. But if we were to look back at how have we learned up until now, and what does that mean when we're living in an age where artificial intelligence can outcalculate us, outwrite us, outorganize us, right? It is doing work in certain ways that are better than human capabilities. There's no doubt about it. But what does that mean for us as school owners, as principals, as teachers who are now teaching the next generation on how we're going to actually develop their IQ and human intelligence? So when we look at millennia, and I'm going back like not just hundreds of years, but thousands of years, we look at tradition, right? How have people learned across time? So they say that sometimes society changes, but people don't change. People essentially kind of stay the same. We have certain human emotions and needs, and it stays the same. So we've seen from time immemorial that we've had stories around the campfire, right? Oral tradition, myths, legends, folk tales, which is very much still a part of our culture, our society, sometimes even our religious beliefs. We've had art and culture. We enjoy a great deal of aesthetic pleasure of how we express our humanness, our human expressions. We have constantly battling different ethical dilemmas, our moral sense, that is being weighed. And now with AI, we have another set of challenges of what is being evaluated ethically. So we have embraced it. We've gone in our education system from the apprenticeship method, the Gurukul system, to the industrial age, which was the factory model. And then we had, maybe about 50 years ago, a Sage on Stage model. And that's completely outdated now, right? And now, we have been talking for the last, I would say, 20 years about more of a guide on the side. And now with AI, we have to see how we can actually maximize that human interaction time and reduce all that time, as Mr. Praveen Raju was saying, of all the other administrative tasks that are tiring out teachers and taking up too much time. One example that we can look at from current day scenario is something that's used pretty widely now, is something called design thinking. This is just one example, but this is something that is utilizing both our critical thinking skills and our creativity, our right brain and our left brain, but it's powered by empathy. When we're using design thinking to design a product, design a strategy, do anything in life, whether we are a school owner or a business owner or anything, we have to completely get ourselves out of the way and put ourselves in another's shoes and see it completely from their perspective. That empathy is very important. Now, AI does not have empathy. This is one example of what AI doesn't have. This is a human-only capacity that we need to nurture and cultivate. And we also, as educators, need to have empathy for kids that are growing up in an age that is very, very different from our age. These digital natives, they've been exposed to technology from birth, and it's more and more. So what is going to happen to even the teachers now? A younger lot of teachers is coming in. It's not just the millennials, but the Gen Zs are now entering into the workforce. How are we in our organizations nurturing social and emotional learning? Again, that is also another human-only capacity. And if we were to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, these are the basic needs. Intellectual need is like right in the middle, but it's first your physiological needs, your psychological needs, your safety needs, your need for love and belonging, for being a part of a group, a classroom, right, a community, and then comes intellectual needs. We're living in an age, as I mentioned before, AI has surpassed human performance in many ways, but if we were to now say, okay, enough about AI, but what about HI? What about human intelligence? What does it look like? What does it sound like? How can we experience human intelligence when it's in front of us? So I think that just as much as we're kind of contemplating about AI, I think that we need to contemplate and think about how are we expanding our human capacity, our human competencies, our human proficiencies. And that is just as important as your discussions and debates and research about AI, is to look more into the human intelligence aspects as well. And what is unique about human intelligence? I mentioned a couple of examples, the social and emotional aspect, the empathy example, and then how do we strengthen that? So when we're looking at redefining learning, and this is something that we have to be very reflective, right? We are talking about educators being lifelong learners. We don't have a choice. We have to be, because technology and everything is happening so fast with exponential growth. We have to continuously update ourselves, update our systems, update our faculty, right? But when we are looking at the entire school scenario, we have to think about at the end of when my child enters the portals of my school and leaves and graduates, what are those life-worthy outcomes that he or she should walk away with? How have I empowered that child for life? How have I enriched that child for life, right? So what is relevant and useful to kids in this era of rapid change? We need to discern what that is. And what is it that kids need to know today to succeed in life? Our parents' generation, they had to memorize everything. Us, maybe not so much. We were introduced to computers a little bit later on in our schooling. But now it's different. It's not about how much information you know, it's about what you do with that information. That is most important. Okay, so my fear, like I said again, my fear is over-reliance on AI without building your human-only intelligence. I would like to kind of propose, this is something that I have worked with for the last 30 years in education, is that intelligence is not a fixed capacity. It's not just this IQ score, but it's a very multifaceted capacity that has a blend of abilities, and it's shaped by experiences lifelong. And that is something that we need to be conscientious of and continue to nurture. We have in our own brain's computer something called neuroplasticity. This is something that we need to embrace, we need to be aware of. The brain is like a muscle. You use it, it becomes stronger. You don't use it, you lose it. Just like when you stop working out, you lose muscle, same thing happens to your brain. And now, I was in Mayo Clinic and we had a seminar there, and now health experts, top health experts around the world, they're saying that whatever you're going to do for your heart, the cardiovascular, is going to be good for your brain, because now the cognitive decline is not going to be only in the elderly. The cognitive decline has now come down a few generations with over-reliance on AI. So that is something that we have to be aware of. And I repeat this ad nauseum, but I love this maxim from Einstein. He said, knowledge is experience. Everything else is information. My dear educators, you have to understand that the number one thing that the kids are coming to you for, or their parents are sending their children to school for, is not the syllabus and not all these, curriculum and this and that. They're sending their children to you so that you can facilitate the most wonderful, curated facilitating of experiences. This is what they're coming for. They're coming for the experience. What is the type of experience you can curate when they're learning about X, Y, and Z, right? So that is what we have to think about. The knowledge lies in how you are going to facilitate experiences in your institutions. So my take is, I am a big advocate for the theory of multiple intelligences. I've used it for over 25 years. I feel that this is a great offset in the threat of AI, what we think about. I think that this is how we can build our multifaceted human capacity. I feel that it's also in line with universal design for learning, which is also very big in education circles. You may have heard about it, but the 3 parallels of the why, what, and how of learning, right? So it's engaging, having multiple means of representation, multiple means of engagement, and multiple means of action and expression. Providing those opportunities, not just for the neurotypical, but also for the neurodiverse. So again, people have different type of learning styles. You're gonna accommodate all types of learners. And what we learned in UDL is the barrier is never in the student, it is in the environment. And as educators, it is our responsibility to minimize the barriers and maximize learning. Okay. It also helps when we recognize that we have neuroplasticity, that we have a growth mindset. And if we can, first of all, as educators, understand that intelligence is not fixed, right? Yes, there is a genetic component to it, a nature component to it, but there's also a nurture component to it. It is also abilities that can be nurtured throughout a lifetime. So we have to have a growth mindset about intelligence. We can train our brain. We recognize the value of experiences. We challenge and foster resilience and adaptability. When we take a look at millennia, right? What is the biological paradigm teaching us? Those who adapt not only survive, but thrive. Those who don't adapt don't survive. So adaptability is very keen. And for that, we have to keep developing multiple competencies and holistic growth. And that's going to help us navigate the complexities of modern life that is becoming even more and more intense and complicated and unprecedented. Okay, so I'm not going to go into this, but there's a great parallel between AI and MI. Both ecosystems, both get better with, feedback. But MI, human intelligence, is a natural growth process with embodied experience that are textured and multisensorial. So engaging all the five senses and learning, and that, empathy, the social and emotional, that's really, really important. And one example that I wanted to just give you, I'm not going to go through all of it, but search where AI can aid in enhancing human capacities. When I showed you the slide a little earlier about, for millennia, we've been very hooked to storytelling. We love a great narrative. We love a great story. So you can use AI, and the example I wanted to share is you're teaching the water cycle to young children, right? You can ask AI to create a story for you about the water cycle for class two, second grade. And I did this, and it came up with this beautiful story called Wally the Water Drop. So this is the way that you can use AI to enhance that. I think I'm almost out of time. Let me just finish up. Yeah. How much more time do I have? Okay. So I'm just going to skip. I had a whole presentation on the whole theory of multiple intelligences, but too bad. We don't have time for that. I'm just going to finish the end slide, okay? I'll play it. Okay, there you go.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected.
Okay, I guess we don't have time for that. So anyway, my concluding marks are that education is exploratory, enriching, experiential, empathetic, episodic, and empowering. And so let's learn and lead from there. And if you'd like to have any more information, I do have my previous book on ABCs of brain compatible learning here in the corner. These are some QR codes to my website and Instagram where I share different information, tips and all for all of you. Thank you so much.